Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of Women Members Excellence Committee of ICAI, it is my pleasure to welcome you all to Yashaswini, an Idol Series 45. Yashaswini, an Idol is a Wednesday series of program conducted by the WMEC for the women CAs and by the women CAs. This series is an extension of Sky High Symposium, which concluded its 100 episodes. It is one of the committee's initiative to not only disseminate information to women members on technical updation and non-technical skills, but also to empower and inspire women members to come at forefront and realize their verbal skills at public forum. Today, our first session is on recent changes in TDS by CA Jagrati Kulkarni. Let me introduce CA Jagrati to you. With over 11 years of experience in accounting and direct taxation, specializes in tax planning, compliance, and optimization for HNIs, focusing on investments like private equity, mutual funds, AIFs, and PMS. She is proficient in managing complex tax matters, including withholding tax and legal submission for assessments. Please feel free to share your thoughts and questions as we go along. That will be taken at the end of the session. Now, let's welcome CA Jagrati to take us through the recent changes in TDS. Over to you, CA Jagrati.
Thank you, Payal. Thank you for the nice introduction. And thank you, Women Members Excellence Committee, for giving this opportunity to be to become a speaker in IDOL Series 45. Hello, friends. Good afternoon to all. Welcome to my session on recent changes in TDS. As you all know, the next budget, Union Budget 25-26, is approaches very fast. It is going to be held on 1st February 2025. So we will now see some of the changes that is happened in budget announced by our Honorable Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman ji on 23rd July 2024, and that is applicable for some of the sections from 1st October 2024. So now I will first let us so now I will first give us brief introduction for some of the sections in which there are amendments, and then I will tell you some 5 sections in detail in which there are amendments in the sections from 1st October 2024.
Ma'am, you are on mute. Please unmute.
हो ही नहीं रहा है, देखो अभी।
इसको कैंसिल करूंगी, स्क्रीन को करूंगी।
हेलो, ओके, यस,
स्क्रीन शेयर
एबल टू सी द स्क्रीन।
और यहाँ पे है स्क्रीन शेयर।
Ma'am, please show it on the full screen, ma'am.
Yes, correct. So welcome to today's session on recent changes in TDS. First, we will see some key changes in TDS as per the Union Budget 24-25. Firstly, very famous section, Section 192 2B. Salaried employees now share the details of TCS with the employer. And a net tax payable shall be calculated after deduction of such TCS. This is majorly because the TCS rates are as high as 20% on foreign remittances. So if certain employee has booked some foreign tour or remitted some foreign money, then TCS is collected by the government at the rate of 20% after 7 lakh rupees. So if any person has booked foreign tour, say 20 lakhs, amounting to 20 lakhs rupees, then TCS has to be collected on 13 lakh rupees. 20 lakh minus 7 lakh, that is 13 lakh, and on that 20%. So 20% is very huge share. So now employees can share this TCS details along with the TCS certificate with the employer, and employer can calculate his total tax liability after getting credit of TCS. So his per month TDS liability will get reduced. Next section, Section 193. It is also very famous. As you all know, TDS under Section 193 is applicable as interest on securities for more than rupees 10,000 at the rate of 10%. But this TDS is not applicable on government securities, central government and state government securities. But there are some exceptions in the applicability of this TDS. 8% saving taxable bonds 2003 and 7.75% saving taxable bonds 2018 are exceptions. Now, floating rate saving bonds 2020 and any security that is notified by central or state government is already included in exception. So TDS is applicable on these securities, means 8% saving taxable bonds, 7.75% taxable bonds, and now FRSB, floating rate saving bonds, is applicable on amount more than rupees 10,000, though these are central and state government securities. Means these 4 to 5 things are in exceptions, and TDS is regularly applicable on these securities. Next is Section 194C, TDS on contracts. The definition of work in Section 194C on payment to contractors specifically excludes manufacturing or supplying of goods as per specific requirement of the customer. Previously, this manufacturing or supplying of goods as per specific requirement of the customer is included in the definition of work if the goods are purchased from the customer. And if the goods are not purchased from the customer, then it is excluded. So government has removed this ambiguity, and now the definition of work excludes manufacturing and supplying of goods as per specific requirement of the customer. And also any payments covered in section 194J1, that is professional fees, technical fees, etc. Next, section 194IA. Section 194IA, deductor has to deduct 1% TDS on consideration. Means when customer buys any house property and consideration is more than 50 lakhs rupees, then he needs to deduct TDS at the rate of 1% in PAN of the builder and deposit it to the government at the time of credit, booking of the property, or payment, whichever is earlier. So if the property value is say 1 crore 20 lakhs rupees, then customer has to pay 1%, 1,20,000 rupees on the builder's PAN and deposit it to the government. But nowadays there is joint ownership cases, and in the joint ownership cases you have to consider the whole consideration amount. Aggregate consideration has to be determined for the limit of rupees 50 lakhs rupees. So for example, if house property value is 1 crore 20 lakh rupees and husband's share is 80 lakhs and wife's share is 40 lakh, then in case of joint ownership, the TDS is applicable at the rate of 1%. Though wife's share is 40 lakhs less than 50 lakhs, you have to combine both the amounts and see the aggregate consideration paid to the builder. So you have to deduct 1% TDS, that is 1,20,000 on the entire consideration amount. In this case, you have to also see the stamp duty value also. Means consideration is 1 crore 20 lakhs and stamp duty value is 1 crore 50 lakhs. Then you have to deduct the TDS at the rate of 1% on stamp duty value. Section 194T. This new section is introduced to deduct TDS at a rate of 1% on salary, commission, bonus, or interest paid by partnership firm to its partners. The limit is 20,000 rupees per financial year, and it is to be deducted at the time of credit or payment, whichever is earlier. So if you are paying your partner's salary 10,000 rupees, commission 5,000, bonus 10,000, then you have to aggregate all these amounts 25,000, and then you need to deduct 10% on the whole amount. Share of profit is excluded here. Partnership firm pays tax on the entire income. So when it distributes its income in the form of profit, then there will be no TDS because share of profit is exempt in the partner's hands. It is already taxable as in the income of partnership firm. So it is exempt in the hands of the partners. There is no need of deduction of tax if share of profit is declared. Section 198. TDS deducted under Chapter 17B and tax deducted and paid outside India. Both can be claimed as credit and both can be taken as income received. So, if the NRI is offering any income and he is paying taxes both in India and in, say, a foreign country, Singapore or so, then he cannot offer the net income. The income has to be offered as gross. Means TDS deducted in India and TDS deducted outside India, both can be taken as income received. Now, we will see the 5 sections in details in which there are amendments from 1st October 2024. So these 5 sections are Section 194M, Section 194IB, Section 194G, Section 194DA, and lastly Section 194O. First section. Section 194M, TDS on payment to resident contractors and professionals. Many of you might have wondered why this section is introduced, because this section 194J and section 194C are already there. Section 194J is for TDS on payment towards professional and technical fees, and section 194C is towards payment to contracts. So if these sections are already in existence, then many of us have wondered why this section is introduced. But these two sections are applicable to business entities and not to individual and HUF. Also, these two sections are not covering any payments in relation to personal work. So this section is introduced by Finance Act 2019 and it is applicable from 1st September 2019. We will see when section 194M is applicable. An individual or HUF availing the services of resident contractor or professional in the nature of business, professional or personal work in a particular financial year for an amount exceeding rupees 50 lakh rupees. So as you see in this case, payment should be made to resident contractor or professional. In this section, payment to non-resident persons are not covered. And also, you can avail the business, professional, or even personal work related things. And limit is also high. Limit is rupees 50 lakhs rupees in one financial year, as against 30,000 rupees in section 194J and 194C. The limit is 1 lakh rupees for one financial year and 30,000 rupees for single payment. Now we will see one example. If Mr. A, who is HNI, and not liable for tax audit. Means he is earning any income from capital gains or income from other sources or income from house property. Paid rupees 60 lakh rupees, which is more than rupees 50 lakhs to contractor towards home renovation. Then he has to deduct the TDS under section 194M, though home renovation is personal in nature. And remember, in this case, the TDS is applicable on the entire amount of rupees 60 lakhs and not the difference of rupees 10 lakhs. Now we will see when tax is to be deducted. Tax is to be deducted earlier of the following dates: at the time of credit of such amount and at the time of payment in cash or issue of check or draft or by any other mode. Suppose you, in the earlier example, you received the invoice of rupees 60 lakh rupees in September 24, but you have paid the amount in October, then you have to deduct the TDS in September 2024 only. Because in the credit in the books of accounts is earlier than payment. Now we will see what is the rate of TDS that needs to be deducted in the circumstances of section 194M. So this rate of TDS deduction is amended from 1st October 2024 and it is 2%. Earlier, till 30th September 2024, the rate was 5%. Now we will see what is the due date of payment under this section and how this TDS needs to be deposited with government. For payment of TDS under section 194M, you need not apply any TAN. Simply by logging to income tax portal through PAN, you can able to deposit the TDS. You will furnish TDS Challan cum statement in form 26QD. When you log into your income tax portal through normal login that you used for your ITR filing, you can see the e-payment of taxes, and in that case, you will able to deposit this TDS. So due date is within 30 days from the end of the month in which you made the payment. For example, if you paid professional fees rupees 60 lakhs rupees on 3rd December 2024, then you have to pay the TDS amounting to rupees 1,20,000, that is 2% of 60 lakh rupees on or before 30th January 2025. 30 days from 31st December 2024 falls on 30th January 2025. If you pay TDS on 31st January 2025, you will be in default because you have to pay TDS within 30 days and not 1 month. So in this case, the last date of payment is 30th January and not 31st January. So you have to be careful while paying the TDS under this section. Then only you're able to meet the due date of payment. TDS certificate. After payment of TDS in Form 26 QD, you will able to give TDS certificate to the deductee. So deductor has to furnish Form 16D within 15 days of due date of furnishing Form 26 QD. In the above case, the due date is 30th January 2025. So after that, 15 days falls on 14th February 2025. What are the consequences if you have not deposited the TDS in time and not able to file the Form 26 QD in time? Then, in case of non-deduction, 1% interest is charged, and in case of non-payment, 1.5% per month or part of the month from the date of deduction till date of deposit of TDS with the government, you have to pay as interest. And if you have not filed the TDS statement within due date, then you have to pay the fee of rupees 200 per day under section 234E for late furnishing of TDS returns. In this case, TDS returns means TDS statement Form 26 QD. Points to remember. You need not obtain TAN to pay TDS under section 194M simply by login from PAN on income tax website that you normally use for filing your ITR. You can able to deposit the TDS. This section is not applicable to non-resident payees. For applicability of the section, the payment has to be made to resident person only. If you are paying say 60 lakh rupees to some foreign professional, then you need not deduct the TDS under section 194M. If PAN is not provided, then straight away deduct the TDS at the rate of 20% under section 206AA. Last point is very important. Individual or HUF deducting and paying TDS under normal sections means under section 194C, 194H and 194J need not once again deduct TDS under section 194M. This is mainly applicable for individuals to whom tax audit is applicable. For example, individual or HUF having turnover exceeding rupees 1 crore rupees, sales or turnover exceeding rupees 1 crore rupees in case of business, and rupees 50 lakhs rupees gross receipts in case of profession, then he has to mandatorily deduct TDS under section 194C, 194H and 194J. So in these three sections, this criteria is already mentioned that individual or HUF having turnover exceeding 1 crore in case of business and gross receipts exceeding rupees 50 lakh rupees in case of professional, then they have to mandatorily deduct TDS under these sections and they need not deduct TDS under section 194M. Now this is Form 26 QD that you have to file on income tax website. This is Chalan also and statement also. So Chalan cum statement format under section 194M. You can see payment details in which financial year is mentioned, tax applicable, company, non-company is mentioned, type of payment, TDS on payment to resident contractors and professionals, residential status, payment mode, net banking, debit card or physical, then bank name, deductor details, name, mobile, email ID, PAN, category, individual, HUF, deductee details, name, mobile, email ID, address, PAN, category. It may be anything, company, HUF, partnership firm, LLP, anybody. So deductor might be individual or HUF. Deductee might be anything, company, HUF, LLP, partnership firm. Next, deduction details, nature, professional fees, contract, anything, date of contract in which you have agreed to pay the sum, total value of the contract for the whole year, aggregate payments from 1st April, then if any deductee has applied for lower deduction, then that details. Now you will see in this example, the date of payment or credit is 3rd December 2024, that is after 1st October 2024. So the rate is 2%. And lastly, the tax deposit details. After furnishing this form, Form 26 QD, you will able to generate form number 16D from Trace's website. This is the format of Form 16D. In this case also deductor and deductee PAN is mentioned, name is mentioned, financial year, transaction details, and tax deposit details. Next. Next section is section 194 IB, TDS on rent by certain individuals or HUF. Now again, many of us may wonder why this section is introduced, because section 194I is already there and it covers TDS on rent for an amount exceeding rupees 2,40,000 rupees per financial year. But section 194 starts as any person not being individual or HUF. So, section 194I is not applicable to individual or HUF deductees except individual or HUF to whom tax audit is applicable. So, when tax audit is applicable, you have to apply the TDS under section 194I by default. And in other case, section 194IB is applicable. when TDS under section 194 IB is applicable. An individual or HUF, except those liable for tax audit under section 44 AB, paying to resident rent exceeding 50,000 rupees per month or part of the month during previous year. So like earlier section, in this case also, you have to pay the rent to the resident person only. And in this case, you have to consider the rent per month or part of the month. So in a particular financial year, if you are paying the rent of rupees 45,000 and in the middle of year it is increased to say 51,000, then TDS is applicable as rent exceeds 50,000 rupees in the part of the financial year. When tax needs to be deducted under section 194 IB. Tax needs to be deducted earlier of the following. At the time of credit for the last month of the previous year, or if the property gets vacated during the year, say rent agreements get over on 31st August 2024, then last month of the tenancy means August month. Or at the time of payment of rent in cash, check, draft, any other thing. Earlier of the following two dates, earlier of these two dates, you need to deduct the tax. Now, what is the rate of tax in which TDS under section 194 IB needs to be deducted? This rate also gets amended from 1st October 2024 and it is 2%. Earlier, till 30th September 2024, the rate was 5%. Now we will see the due date for payment of TDS under section 194 IB and how we will be able to deposit the TDS to the government. Like earlier section, you have to log into the income tax portal through PAN. You need not apply TAN for payment of TDS under this section. And in this case, you need to furnish TDS Challan cum statement in form 26QC. Within 30 days from end of the month in which TDS is deducted. For example, if you have paid the rent rupees 60,000 on 3rd December 2024 to Mr. A, then you have to pay TDS under section 194 IB amounting rupees 1,200, 2% of rupees 60,000 on or before 30th January 2025. If you pay TDS on 31st January 2025, you will be in default because you have to pay TDS within 30 days from 31st December 2024 and not 1 month. So again, you need to be very careful while depositing the TDS. You simply log in to the income tax website through your PAN. The same login you used for your ITR filing. And within 30 days from end of the month in which TDS is deducted, you need to deposit the TDS. Now, after depositing the TDS with the government, you have to furnish the TDS certificate to the client or deductee. So we will see the TDS certificate, form number, and also the due date. Deductor has to furnish Form 16C within 15 days of the due date of furnishing Form 26QC. In the above case, Form 16C is to be submitted till 14 February 2025. Consequences for non-compliance of Section 194 IB. If TDS is not deducted or deposited on time, interest is charged at a rate of 1% in case of non-deduction or 1.5% per month in case of non-payment on time from the date of deduction to the date of actual payment. And also, if Form 26QC is not submitted within due date, then you have to pay a late filing fee of rupees 200 per day from the due date of furnishing the TDS statement till the date of furnishing of the statement. So in the above case, if you have furnished Form 26QC late by even one day, then this penalty, late filing fee of rupees 200 is applicable. Points to remember. Deductor need not obtain TAN to pay TDS under Section 194 IB. By login from PAN on the income tax website, he will be able to deposit the TDS. TDS for the previous year cannot be more than the last month's rent. So it cannot be more than March month's rent. If PAN is not provided by the landlord, then straight away deduct the TDS at the rate of 20% under Section 206 AA. Individual or HUF deducting and paying TDS under Section 194I means individual to whom tax audit is applicable, whose turnover exceeds 1 crore rupees in case of business and gross receipts exceeding rupees 50 lakh rupees in the preceding financial year in case of profession, then they have to mandatorily deduct TDS under Section 194I and not under this section. And one more thing you need to remember, in case of deduction of Section 194M and 194IB, you need to verify whether the person is specified person. Means if he has not filed the income tax return in preceding financial year, you need to check the PAN of the deductee in the compliance portal and you will get the list of the persons whether he is specified or not. So, if the person has not filed any ITR in preceding financial year, then he will be categorized as specified person and you have to see the provisions of 206 AB in this case and deduct the TDS at the rate at twice of the rate as specified in the Act or 5%, whichever is higher. So in case if the PAN is not furnished, you have to see section 206 AA in both these sections, 194M and 194 IB, and if he has not furnished any return, then you have to check section 206 AB also to get the TDS deducted at the higher rate as mentioned in section 206 AB. This is the Chalankam statement which you needs to file while paying TDS under section 194 IB. Like earlier section, payment details, assessment year, financial year, deductee, non-deductee, type of payment, residential status, payment mode, then tenant details, name, email ID, PAN, whether more than one tenant, category, landlord details, name, mobile number, email ID, PAN, category of PAN, rented property details, whether land, building, or land or building both, period of tenancy, total value of rent, amount. So in this case, the date of payment or credit is 31st March 2024. So rate is 5%. It is before 1st October 2024. So rate is not 2% but 5%. Lastly, tax deposit details. This is form number 16C, which needs to be given to the deductee within 15 days of the due date of furnishing form 26 QC. This is the TDS certificate, name, address of deductor and deductee, PAN of both, financial year, nature of transaction, tax deposit details, and then person verified details. So nowadays this section is very important because in many of the cases employees are showing huge rent to the landlord, say 50,000, 60, 1 lakh, 75. Then in this case, they need to deduct the TDS. Otherwise, they will get the notices from Income Tax Department for non-deduction and non-payment of TDS under Section 194 IB and also not furnishing the TDS certificate in time. So, if any employee is showing any rent to the landlord amounting rupees 50,000 or more, then he has to be careful and needs to deposit the TDS under this section at the rate of 2%. Now next section. Section 194G. TDS on commission on sale of lottery tickets. In this section also there is amendment from 1st October 2024. First, we will see when TDS under section 194G is applicable. Any person selling tickets, lottery tickets, you may be individual, HUF, company, partnership firm, any person, paying commission, remuneration or price on a lottery ticket for an amount exceeding rupees 50,000 rupees to the payee It is income to the payee. So income exceeding rupees 50,000 to the payee. Then TDS under section 194G needs to be deducted. For example, if ABC Private Limited lottery ticket seller paid rupees 1 lakh to Mr. D as commission for selling lottery tickets in context Kaun Banega Lakpati, then the company ABC Private Limited had to deduct TDS under section 194G and pay him the amount net of TDS. So in this case, ABC Private Limited is person selling the lottery tickets. And he is paying commission to Mr. D 1 lakh rupees. It is more than 50,000. So in this case, TDS is applicable under section 194G and you will pay him the net amount. When tax needs to be deducted? Tax needs to be deducted earlier of the following date. At the time of credit or at the time of payment. Now we will see the rate of TDS. Rate of TDS from 1st October 2024 is changed to 2%. Earlier, it was 5%. What is the due date of payment under section 194G and how we will deposit this TDS? So you have to obtain the TAN for paying the TDS under section 194G. So you have to log into income tax portal through TAN and furnish TDS Chalan number 281. Within 7 days from the end of the month in which TDS is deducted, except for the month of March. And if TDS is deducted in March, then on or before 30th April of the next financial year. For example, if you have paid commission on lottery tickets rupees 1 lakh rupees on 3rd December 2024 to Mr. D, then you have to pay TDS rupees 2000, 2% of rupees 1 lakh on or before 7th January 2025. And in the same case, if you have deducted TDS on 3rd March 2025, then you have to deposit the TDS rupees 2000 on or before 30th April. TDS certificate. Deductor has to furnish Form 16A within 15 days of the due date of furnishing Form 26Q. Points to remember. Income from sale of lottery tickets are governed by section 194G, whereas winning from lottery tickets are covered by section 194B. So there is difference in both the sections. If you are paying any commission or remuneration to the vendor, then you have to deduct TDS under section 194G. But in case of winnings from lottery and all the quiz contacts and all those things, then section 194B is applicable. If a lottery ticket agent wins any reward from the ticket he purchased for himself, then the tax will be deducted under section 194B. Under section 194B, TDS rate is much higher. It is 30%. So if the agent wins any reward then TDS need to be deducted under section 194B and not section 194G. If PAN is not provided, then TDS rate is 20%. In case of non-compliance of this section also, interest 1.5% for non-payment is there, and penalties also section 271C is also there. This form is form number 27A. It needs to be submitted for filing the TDS return. It is regular form. And this is form number 16A that needs to be given to the deductee. It is also very regularly used, form 16A. So we will quickly go to the other section. Section 194DA. TDS on payments in respect of life insurance policy. When TDS under section 194DA is applicable, any person paying to resident any sum, maybe maturity, death, including bonus on life insurance policy for an income exceeding rupees 1 lakh to the payee. For example, if policyholder receives maturity amount of rupees 5 lakhs and total premium he had paid over the years amounts rupees 3 lakhs, then the net taxable income 2 lakh rupees. On that amount, TDS under section 194DA is applicable. When tax needs to be deducted. In this case, there is no question of credit of anything. So TDS needs to be deducted at the time of payment only. Rate of TDS. Again, this rate is changed to 2% from 1st October 2024. And rate of TDS deduction till 30th September is 5%. For depositing this TDS, you have to log in to income tax portal through TAN and furnish the TDS chalan number 281 within 30 days from the last day of the month when TDS deduction was made. So TDS in the above cases, ₹10,000 if TDS is deducted before 1st October 2024, and 2% of rupees 2 lakhs amounts to rupees 4,000 rupees from 1st October 2024. And you need to furnish TDS certificate form number 16A within 15 days of the due date of furnishing form 26Q. Points to remember. Not all life insurance payouts are subject to TDS. The payments that are exempt under section 1010D, on that case, TDS need not be deducted. Maturity sum received by the policyholder or any sum received by the nominee or legal heir on the death of the policyholder, including the bonus, or any sum received as a surrender value of the policy, including bonus, that is exempt under section 1010D, is not subject to TDS. So income is exempt under section 1010D, so there will be No question of deducting TDS in that situation. So what are the exemptions under section 1010D? If life insurance policy LIP is issued before 1st April 2012 and the premium does not exceed 20% of the sum assured, amount received as mentioned in point number 2 is exempt. And if life insurance policy is issued after 1st April 2012 and the premium does not exceed 10% of the sum assured, then amount received as mentioned in point number 2 is exempt. If LIP is issued after 1st April 2013 on the life of disabled person for the diseases covered under section 80U or 80DDB and the premium does not exceed 15% of the sum assured, then amount as mentioned in point number 2, that is maturity or any death benefit or surrender value including bonus, then that is exempt from tax. If PAN is not provided, TDS rate is 20%. Interest and penalty is the same thing like earlier sections. If you have not deposited the TDS within due date, then you have to face the interest rate at the rate of 1.5% per month or part of the month until deposits are completed, and let TDS return filing fee of rupees 200 per day also levied. Also, for furnishing inaccurate information, penalty ranging from 10,000 to 1 lakh is imposed. Now the last section, section 194O, TDS on payment made to e-commerce participants. When TDS under section 194O is applicable, when e-commerce operator sells goods or provides services made by e-commerce participant on the platform facilitated by e-commerce operator, then in this case section 194O is applicable. For example, if company RST Private Limited, that is the e-commerce participant, sold its books through Amazon, Amazon is e-commerce operator, then TDS under section 194O is applicable. When tax needs to be deducted earlier of the following dates: at the time of credit of sale value of goods or services, or at the time of payment to e-commerce participant. Now we will see the rate of TDS. So rate of TDS is much reduced from 1% to 0.1% from 1st October 2024. Due date of payment of TDS under section 194O is similar like earlier section, within 7 days from the end of the month in which TDS is deducted, except for March. And if TDS deducted is in March, then on or before 30th April of the next financial year. For example, if QPR LLP purchased goods amounting rupees 50,000 online through Amazon, so QPR LLP is a customer. He wants to buy some goods. He go to the Amazon login. Amazon is an e-commerce operator. He viewed there are different choices. He choiced RST Private Limited, selected books on 1st November 2024 and paid the whole amount on 15th November 2024, then in this case, Amazon e-commerce operator needs to deduct TDS at the rate of 0.1% on 1st November 2024 is rupees 51. At the time of credit or payment, whichever is earlier, in this case, earlier is 1st November and paid on or before 7th December 2024. TDS certificate. Deductor has to furnish Form 16A within 15 days of the due date of furnishing Form 26Q. If an e-commerce participant is a resident or HUF, then you need to see the limit, the gross sales amount for that individual or HUF. If it exceeds rupees 5 lakhs, then only TDS under section 194O is applicable. No TDS deductions are applicable if an e-commerce participant is non-resident. Lower or nil TDS certificate can be obtained by e-commerce participant by submitting form number 13 as per section 197. If PAN is not available, TDS is deductible under section 206 AA. So now the session got ended. Thank you. Thank you, WMAC, for giving this opportunity. I hope you all enjoyed the section. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, Prachi.
Uh, Thank you, Jagruti ma'am, for such a wonderful session highlighting the changes in TDS. And I would now like to post few questions that we have got from our fellow members. So the first question we have from Sudha Allah from Hyderabad. She wants to know that if an NRA is selling agricultural land in rural area worth 2 crores, will that attract TDS?
Agricultural land.
Yeah, in the rural area, and the sale is being done by a NRI. So will
Okay.
that be attracting TDS?
Actually, I will get back to you later in this because this is not covered by today's topic. So I will get
Okay,
back
fine.
to you later. Can
Yeah.
she post me this query or you
Sure,
can
ma'am.
post
I'll
my
let the committee members know so that they can post a
Yes,
question
yes,
to you directly. Okay.
yes.
Another question we have from Sujata Padmanabham from Chennai. She has a question that the TDS on partner's salary, whether it is applicable from 1st of April 25 only. She
Yes,
needs
yes. It is
clarification.
applicable from 1st April 2025 only and not from 1st October. So it is applicable from 1st April 2025.
Okay. We have another question from Astha Malhotra from Delhi. She wants to know that if an individual has let out his house for a rent of 54,000 per month to another individual. So now, first of all, do they need to have the TAN? And in case of,
No.
do they need to deduct TDS in such a case?
Yes, they need to deduct the TDS in such a case, but TAN is not applicable. They
Okay.
simply, by login through their PAN, they will able to deposit the TDS. So TDS is applicable in such case at the rate of 2% from 1st October 2024, but there is no requirement to get the TAN. They can deposit the TDS with the help of PAN only.
Okay. And they also want to know, what if the TDS is not deducted? What would be the consequences?
Yes, if the TDS is not deducted, then they have to pay the interest at the rate of rupees 1% for non-deduction and 1.5% for not depositing the TDS, and also they have to pay the late filing return fee that amounts to rupees 200 per day for not filing form 26 QC in time. So late interest and penalty for not filing the return in time, both are levied.
Okay. And one more question we would be taking up, ma'am. Our fellow member wants to know that do maintenance charges form a part of the rent, which is like subject to deduction of TDS?
No, maintenance charges are not included. Only the rent part is included.
Okay. So
In the
that,
agreement, you have to mention the rent amount, right? So the rent amount is only tax deductible and maintenance is not tax deductible.
so even if like it is being inclusive, if the total amount which is being paid is inclusive of rent and maintenance, so then
Then
rent,
both are, yes, yes.
then TDS has
Then,
to be deducted on both.
yes, yes,
So
on the
it's better to
whole
pay them
amount.
separately. That is what you
Correct, correct. Yes, yes.
are.
Actually, two checks needs to be withdrawn, one
Okay.
towards rent and one towards maintenance. If both are inclusive, means rent and maintenance, and in the agreement, the total amount is mentioned, then TDS needs to be deducted on the whole amount.
Okay.
It is better to draw two separate checks.
Okay. So I hope the solutions given by ma'am are very clear to all those who have posted their questions. And now, like, I would like to propose the vote of thanks for today's session. I, CA Prachi Ranade, convey my heartfelt thanks to CA Jagruti Kulkarni uh, for delivering a wonderful session on the topic of recent changes in TDS. She has deliberated all the important changes with respect to TDS, and I'm sure that all the fellow members have been highly benefited by the same. I would also take this opportunity to extend my gratitude to CA Preeti Savla, Chairperson of WMEC ICAI, CA Kemisha Soni, Vice Chairperson WMEC of ICAI, for giving this opportunity for being the moderator for today's session on recent changes on TDS. I would also extend my thanks to all the members who have been involved in making this session happen. So thank you once again to everyone who has been involved for making this session a success. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prachi. Thank you very much, Women Members Excellence Committee. Thank you all. Bye. Over to you, Ruchira. All the best. Thank you. Bye.
Uh, I would now like to welcome our next guest speaker, Advocate Ruchira Nerkar, who will be guiding us on the topic of prevention of sexual harassment at workplace. As we all know that this is a very important topic that needs to be addressed, because everyone is some or the other way facing this kind of problem at their respective workplaces. So I would quickly like to give a small introduction of our speaker so that I can hand over the session to her. Uh, Ruchira Nerkar is a legal advisor with 7+ years of experience, and she has a specialization in posh law, compliance of corporate legal advisory, and training. She also conducts workshops and offers advisory services on anti-sexual harassment laws, labor laws, and commercial contract management. So, welcome, Ruchira ma'am. And without taking much of your time, I would hand over the session to you for your further briefing.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm deeply grateful for this warm introduction and the honor of addressing this distinguished audience. My sincere thanks to WMAC, first of all, for this opportunity to speak on such a vital subject that is POSH. So let's begin. Okay. So POSH is not just about compliances, it's basically a step forward for fostering respect, dignity, equality in all of our workplaces. and as and well, how globalization is increasing, how office spaces are elaborating to not just a single office space or a office setup, but to homes and various other places where people are traveling to, it is very important that everyone is aware of what are their rights and also what are the compliances that they need to take care of as both employees and employers. Okay. Okay. So first of all, before starting and indulging into the POSH Act, I would let you know, and I would want you to know that it is very important to know that the entire POSH Act deals with perceptions and not the intent. So, as and when we are moving forward with the different clauses and sections of the POSH Act, always keep in mind at the back of your mind this thought that every action or every scenario that relates to prevention of sexual harassment or sexual harassment will be decided upon or is subjective in nature. Okay. Or just remember that intent does not matter, perception matters. Okay. Is my screen visible?
No, ma'am.
Yes. I hope it is now. Okay. So we'll talk in a little bit about what led to the genesis of such a specific law. Um, Before 2013, actually before 2005 itself, there was this is a small story relating to the background of how we got the guidelines from the Supreme Court that led to the enactment of the act later on. Okay, so there was this social worker who was by the name of Bhavari Devi, was working in the villages of Rajasthan to stop female infanticides and female feticides and child labor, child marriages, and all of these sorts of work. So, on one very eventful day, she came to know about a child marriage taking place a little far away from her own village of a 1 year old girl. So she went there. She stopped the wedding. The wedding was in taking place in a Gujjar community. So the community took it in a very insulting manner, considering that how can a woman of some other caste come and stop our wedding and like create a hurdle in our traditions and everything of that sort. So what they did was on that day the wedding was stopped, but after a few days they decided to take revenge on this particular person, that is Bhavri Devi. So they collected all of their men of their community and went to Bhavri Devi's village. They abducted Bhavri Devi along with her husband, and then they had beaten up his her husband, and then they gang raped Bhamri Devi. So Vishaka was an NGO who was working in the same villages. They took up Bhavri Devi in that particular. This is a very important point to know, and we should all must be aware of and take inspiration from. After that incident, Bhavri Devi went ahead and filed a complaint to both the local police station. She waited for some action to be taken, but she did not take any action that day. The police officers did not take any action that day. Even just they took up the matter, they conducted investigations, and whatever have been the scenario at that time, no particular action was taken on till 4, 5, 6, 7 months in that particular incident. Vishaka, an NGO working for similar causes, took up the case of Bhavari Devi and filed a petition to the High Court. Okay, then this case was escalated to the Supreme Court for no result was being given by the High Court, and the process was taking very long. And at that time, in those years, even the evidences were not very strong. And as the evidences get stale, the process of the court also becomes slower and slower. So after this case was taken up by taken to the Supreme Court, Supreme Court gave out few guidelines which became famous as Vishaka guidelines. Okay, So before the sexual harassment prevention of sexual harassment case came up, law came in, the Vishaka guidelines were the ruling guidelines in these particular matters. Later on, it was realized that even the guidelines, since they are only directional in nature, there is no compliances, or there are no damages, or there are no punishments, strict punishments if these guidelines are not complied with. That's why they are of no use. So another lady by the name of Megha wrote a letter to the Supreme Court in order to to take a stricter action or direct the government to make a law with respect to prevention of sexual harassment. That particular letter was taken as a petition. A direction was given to the legislative assembly to draft an act, and henceforth the draft of the act came into practice, came into picture, and then it was approved and it became a law. So this is all the genesis of this particular law in India. So the law does not relate to only prevention of sexual harassment, it also relates to protection and redressal if a sexual harassment incident has taken place. Okay. So the act defines sexual harassment at workplace in a very detailed manner. It says that any implied or explicit promise of preferential treatment in employment, implied or explicit threat of detrimental treatment, implied or explicit threat about her present or future employment status, or any other interference with her work, or creating an intimidating, offensive, hostile workplace, or humiliating treatment, or anything of that sort. That is, basically, the act has taken care of all the things that could have actually occurred, or that could might have occurred or occur in future, or that might, according to the person or the respondent or who has committed the particular activity, might be intentless, but the person at the receiving end has considered them to be unwelcome, okay, or have perceived them to be a nature of in the nature of sexual harassment. So, in simpler words, sexual harassment in workplace is any deed or any action which is unwelcome in nature, is sexual, both covert and overt, and makes the recipient very uncomfortable. Okay. What type of actions constitute workplace sexual harassment? As we have seen in the definition as well, making physical contact or advancement. So this becomes very implied. Demanding or requesting for sexual favors, passing sexually colored comments or remarks, showing pornography, etc. Now, the Act did a very good job in defining what is a workplace. It can very well happen, right, that maybe me and one of the moderators here are working at one place. Or let's just take the example of Bhavri Devi. So, Bhavri Devi worked for an NGO. This similar question was raised in Bhavri Devi as well. Bhavri Devi was working for an NGO. Now, Bhavri Devi traveled to another village. That village is not her workplace. So the High Court raised a very big question of law, that you have traveled to some other place which is not your workplace. So anything that happened to you there does not become harassment at workplace. To which there were defenses given, or there were contentions made, that in due course of work, if the person or if the complainant is traveling anywhere, if the victim is traveling anywhere, that place becomes a workplace. So the Act has defined the workplace, and in a very inclusive and a very elaborate manner. The workplace can very well be an office, personal space of the senior or hiring authority, a company guest house, or any other place. Now, this became this these 3 points. Let's see, for example, these 3 points became workplace for a person who's working in an office. Now, let's imagine a particular maid or a helper is coming to your house. That particular house becomes a workplace for her. Okay. For office purposes, you are traveling to some other place, you are traveling for conferences. If your travel is provided by your employer, then that travel is also becomes your workplace. If your accommodation to those conference places is also provided by your employer, then those accommodations become your workplace, those conferences become your workplace. Okay. So anything or any place which is in due course of your work becomes your workplace. Who all are covered under this law? Okay. It's not necessary that if you are going to office daily and you are on roll of a particular employer, only then you will be protected under this particular act. Full-time employees and temporary employees, both of them are covered. Whether you are a contractual worker, whether you are a daily wage employee, whether you are a probationer, intern, trainee, housekeeping workers, security workers, representatives of clients and vendors, and people who are working, in fact, voluntarily as well, will be considered as employees and will be covered under this law. Now, most important thing to know here is, let's take an example. An incident of sexual harassment took place in a particular office. The person who was affected by that particular incident, that is the victim, left the office after 2 or 3 years. Then in after 2 or 3 years after leaving the office, she realized that this was a very bad thing that had happened to me, and maybe that particular person, or she hears an incident that another sexual harassment incident happened with that particular office, and the same person who was the respondent or who was the perpetrator at that time, in her case, was the perpetrator in this present case also. She gains a little courage that she's not the only one with whom this is happening. She goes and files the complaint of sexual harassment in that particular office. Even then, she will be considered and covered under this law. Okay. So once you have worked there, the incident of sexual harassment took place during your due course of work. Even though you have filed the complaint later, this will be considered as sexual harassment at workplace. But in this particular scenario, like I gave you the example of 3-4 years, it depends of the internal complaints committee's discretion whether to accept the complaint or not, because there is a strict timeline given by this particular act, that in which timeline you have to file a complaint. Okay, these are a few examples of sexual harassment, like gazing, leering, vulgar gestures, unhealthy comments, and dirty jokes over women's body and clothing, abusing power by demanding sexual favors, touching, caressing, blocking path. Just so that you guys are aware of, it is also important to know that this is actually important to know for people who are just making a change in their lives, who have just completed their college or their education right now, and then are going to places for working. When you are in college, you follow a different body language, you follow a different languages or lingos or any sort of behavior with your fellows. But when you are moving forward to a workplace, you have to take care of the language that you use around your fellow employees, the topics that you can talk about, the dressing that you can follow, and all of those things. Because once again, it's not the intent that you are trying, it's not your intent, but it's the perception of the person who is at the receiving end, that they feel that, okay, this is not, maybe you are blocking the path of the person just in a playful manner because they are their friends, but the other person does not find it very welcome in their behavior, or do find it very sexually harassing, so they can go ahead and file a complaint with the internal complaints committee. These are a few more examples: placing work conversations in sexual tone, addressing as darling, baby, and any indirect remarks, sharing and telling non-veg jokes and obscene stories, spreading lies about sexual orientation, interrogating about sexual desire and fantasies, or just as simple as winking eyes. Okay, these are the things that you have to be very aware of and take care. So, what defines unwelcome is the simplest manner to know this. What if you would have been at the receiving end? What you would have thought, okay, this is something that you cannot agree to. Any action done without the consent or is regarded offensive by the recipient. If the recipient is not complaining, it does not necessarily mean that the action is welcome. Maybe that particular person did not find it unwelcome, but someone close to her who was sitting near her thought that this was very, like, this was unwelcome, or this was sexually provocative, or this should not have been done. So even that person can go and file a complaint to the internal committee that this particular person has said something which was very unwelcome in nature. Okay, so some comments and actions which are openly insulting or demeaning also will fall under unwelcome gestures. This is just for a better understanding what can be included in unwelcome and what can be included in welcome behaviors. Something that causes fear, makes you angry or sad, is humiliating in nature. These are all unwelcome, in addition to the ones that we have seen. Okay. For welcome behaviors, which feels comfortable, you to indulge in those conversations, you are in control of the situation. Equality in stature or situation, lawful, respecting privacy, and all of these type of behaviors. Now, moving towards what the Act has to specifically say about things, how to deal with incidents of sexual harassment, and things that you must be aware of both as an employee, as an employer. Okay. Just because you think that this is not normal, or if you think that this is unwelcome, you don't have to ignore it. You actually have to take the active step like Bhavri Devi took that day, even after being gang raped, that you go to the internal complaints committee, which is basically a redressal mechanism that is formulated by your company, to go and file a complaint. We will be dealing with all of that just in a moment. If things don't stop there, report to the ICC. Basically, one and the same thing, that you should not make something that is wrong as your new normal. Don't keep on ignoring it, or don't keep on just going with the flow or accepting what is happening. You must file a complaint. In fact, if something is not happening to you and you are seeing or witnessing something, an incident happening with someone else, go and file the complaint. Now, who is eligible to file a complaint? The aggrieved woman herself. Okay. The Act defines who is an aggrieved woman as well. Now, in cases where the aggrieved woman is unable to file a complaint due to physical or mental incapacity, a complaint may be filed by any prescribed person which she prescribes on her behalf. And if the aggrieved woman is not able to file the complaint due to any other reason, any other person within the office whom she considers a friend, or who thinks in general benefit of the workplace, and thinks that there should be a safer workplace environment, can go and file the complaint. But they have to take the consent of the aggrieved woman first. Whether aggrieved woman for any other reason is unable to make a complaint may be filed by any person who has knowledge of the incident, but only with her consent. And third scenario, where the aggrieved woman is dead. In that particular case, a complaint may be filed by any person who has the knowledge of the incident. Okay. But yes, again, they have to take permission, actually, a written permission from their legal heirs. Workplace sexual harassment can be of two types. One could be a give and take kind of a sexual harassment, that if you do not do this, I will rebuke you, I will destroy your name, I'll destroy your image, and something of that sort. This, or maybe another type, that if you do this for me, maybe I'll get you promoted, I'll give you a good review, I'll put in a better increment proposal for you, and these are the two types of workplace sexual harassment. That is, one, a give and take, and second, a malicious surrounding. Okay, so where there is a quid pro quo, that there's a positivity, that also becomes sexual harassment workplace, though positive. And where there is not positive, actually, sorry, and where there is malicious surrounding, where the workplace becomes unsafe completely, that also is workplace sexual harassment. So, examples of give and take can be any sexual favor is asked for employment, or any special treatment during employment. The employee is threatened, or if she does not comply to such offer. Okay, the action of asking any favor in their nature could be open or indirect. Malicious surrounding, we've already seen, where derogatory discussions are there, or speech about someone's sexual nature or their image, or just destroying their image within the office, or harassing them in front of their peers, becomes malicious. Okay. Now, moving on to some specific actions, specific sections of the Act that we must be aware of. So, the Prevention of Sexual Harassment Act has provisions that that put on some responsibilities on the employer. Okay. So these are the particular responsibility or specific responsibilities that the employer has to take care of. Like, the first and foremost thing is they must, every employer or for every administrative unit or for all number of offices that they have, if there are more than 10 number of employees in a particular office, they must adopt a sexual harassment policy. Okay, they must maintain a safe working environment, and in that sexual harassment policy, they must lay down the members, or they must establish or constitute a internal complaints committee. Okay. So every employer having 10 or more employees to constitute must constitute an internal complaints committee. Okay. Now those internal complaints committee members who are chosen must be their names, their contact details, and their position within the internal complaints committee must be put on display in anywhere in the office, which is visible to every passerby who has come into the office for any contractual work, who is an employee there every day there, or even to a person who has who is just visiting the office for any other work. Okay. Now, another duty of the employer is that employers must organize workshops and awareness programs for their employees and training programs for their internal complaints committee annually. Okay. So another duty is that employer has to conduct workshops and sensitization programs for both who, the employees, to make them aware of their rights and the duties, and for the ICC members to provide training that if a complaint of sexual harassment comes their way, how must they deal with it. Okay. The employees must also establish informal complaints channel, like in the example I gave you earlier, or let's consider the Me Too movement that took place a few years back. How did it originate? Because initially there was one particular person who was very terrified of complaining when the incident took place with her. But later on, when someone else complained, they thought, okay, this is the time then when I can also raise my voice. That the same person has done and has done sexual harassment with me as well, so I can also go and file a complaint. So what will happen? An informal complaints channel will give both power and a little encouragement to the victims to go and file the complaints. Okay. Creating a gender sensitive workplace and eliminating underlying causes of hostile working atmosphere. This is given only. Provide a report to the district officer each year detailing the number of cases filed and their disposition. This is another compliance that every company has to take care of. So in 2018, in 2018, there was an amendment brought to the company's accounting rules 2014. Okay, so this particular amendment, what did it do is it made compulsory for all the companies to, in their board of directors report, to check a column for that they have complied with all the mandates under the POSH Act. Okay. Now, as soon as this has become a mandatory thing, all the companies are required, whether or not any incident of sexual harassment has taken place there or not, they indeed have to check in, yes, that they are taking care of all the compliances or all the mandates that the act is putting on them, which are formulation of an ICC, adoption of a sexual harassment policy, organization of workshops and training programs, publishing or putting forth or pasting the ICC members list somewhere which is visible to everyone, and of course maintaining a safe working environment, gender sensitive working environment. Okay. And filing a annual report to the district officer. Now a question may come up, who is a district officer? So the state government announces a district officer in every district. He can be a district magistrate, he or she can be a additional district magistrate, it can be a collector, deputy collector, or any other person that the state government thinks fit that this person will be conducting an audit for all of the particular jurisdiction within their district, tehsil, talika, municipalities, and everywhere, that Prevention of Sexual Harassment Act is being taken care of. So how does it go? That every employer submits a report to the district officer. If it is not, if it is a government, or if it is an unorganized sector, every district officer appoints a nodal officer. Okay, the nodal officer is taking complaints of sexual harassment at workplace that is taking place in unorganized sectors. Now both of them will submit a report to the district officer. The district officer will compile all the reports that are received by them in its jurisdiction, and then will submit it to the state government. Okay, so other few duties under Section 19 of the POSH Act of the employer are to support internal committee in inquiry process, ensure that the IC reports are submitted on time, providing assistance to aggrieved women in filing complaint, and to initiate legal action either under the I'm sorry for this, the Indian Penal Code has been now changed to BNS, Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita, okay, or under any other law against the perpetrator. Okay, so this is again something that you must be aware of. It's just not, if a sexual harassment incident has taken place with you, it's just not the ICC that you can go and complain to. You can very well go along with your process or procedure of being inquiry being taking place within your workplace. You can very well go and file an FIR under the BNS Act as well against this event or incident of incident of sexual harassment. Or you can ask the help. If you are not aware of the procedure, you can ask your internal complaints committee to help you file a complaint. Okay, now the internal complaints committee. Internal complaints committee is basically the complaint redressal mechanism under the Prevention of Sexual Harassment Act that I have, as initially informed, that every employer who has 10 or more employees needs to constitute. Suppose I work for any company that has offices in Bombay and Pune and maybe has warehouses some other places. So every unit, wherever there are more than 10 members, there 10 employees working, that every unit must have a separate internal complaints committee. Okay. The constitution of internal complaints committee will be, there will be 4 members. As per the law, there is no bondage that there have to be only 4 members. You can very well go ahead and keep 5 members as well. And in order to, and for the sake of basically to avoid bias, it is always preferred that you keep 5 members. Okay, so one member has to be a senior female designate of the firm, organization, or body. That is, that they become the presiding officer. Now the seniority can be both age wise and position wise as well, depends on their internal constitution. Now, two members of this particular internal complaints committee have to be people who are experienced or are committed in the social welfare of women, or who have basic knowledge or who have legal knowledge of law, or knowledge about what are the preventions, what are the protections that exist for women under different laws. Okay, one member or person has to be an external member. When this particular act was enacted, this member, that is one external member, was thought to be included in the ICC in order to prevent or avoid office bias. Since this will be an external member, they would not be very well aware of all the employees who are there within the office, right? So their opinion on the matter would be completely non-judgmental or non-relatable to all the employees. That's why they had kept this one. But in order to avoid the situation of bias again, or maybe a tie, companies always prefer that they have 5 members in the ICC. Okay, now few more things that you must be aware about ICC are that 50% of an ICC must always be women members. Okay, there have to be men, but 50% or more must always be women. Okay, then every ICC member that is appointed or nominated must not hold the position for more than 3 years. Okay, so after every 3 years, there has to be a reconstitution of the ICC. It might be possible that 1 or 2 members leave in between, or a new member is appointed for this post. They can they can very well, the entire ICC need not be changed in every 3 years. Only the members who have completed 3 years need to be changed. Okay, And how is the constitution of ICC takes place? The constitution of ICC takes place by a written order. Okay, so you have to, the employer need to draft a written order, or they can very well make a board resolution that these we on this particular date we have conducted a meeting, we have nominated these many members and then appointed these many members in our ICC, and make it a record. Okay. Now, the filing process of the complaint. This is again something very important that you must be aware of. And I think the most questions come with respect to this procedure only. Okay. Any person who has faced the victim, basically the aggrieved woman as per the act, has to file a report or has to file a complaint, has to file a complaint with the internal complaints committee within 3 months. Okay. In case of unorganized sector, it becomes the local complaints committee. The ICC becomes LCC. Okay, they have been given a 3 months timeline to file a complaint. You can very well go and file a complaint after 3 months. It's just that you have to give a reason, a very strong reason for delay. And then it falls on the discretion of the internal complaints committee or the local complaints committee that they accept the reason or not accept the reason. Okay. Now, the complaint always has to be written. Now, after receiving the complaint, let's follow a timeline that today I'm an ICC member, I'm receiving a complaint today. Within 7 days from today, I have to tell the respondent and the complainant as well that we have informed the respondent. So it is update the complainant that we are informing the respondent that we have received a complaint from them, and send the written copy of the complaint to the respondent. Okay. Now, then the respondent, after 7 days of receiving the complaint, within those 7 days, he gets 10 days time that he can give a written reply. Everything has to be a written document. Okay, that he can give a written reply to the complaints committee that, okay, this is something that I was not aware of, or I did not know, or that the victim perceived it like this complaint is false, this complaint is malicious, and anything of that sort. Okay. If the complainant, now it's the duty of the ICC, there are a few important points that the ICC has to take care of. Okay, now those two important points become, first of all, as soon as then they get time, like, okay, let's call the complainant for an interview, let's call the uh, respondent for the perpetrator for the interview. Okay, they have one-on-one session with both the people. They try to convince the complainant that, okay, this is not that big an incident, or maybe good that you complained to us, but would you be satisfied if the respondent just apologizes, or we give some other sort of a punishment that is settled without an actual inquiry process? Would you be satisfied with them? That if the complainant says yes, they're okay with it, then the ICC conducts an interview session with the respondent and says that this particular incident took place, we have sent you the complaint, you have served us your reply, and within your reply you had suggested that you are ready to apologize, or uh, the complainant is okay that they also want to they are also fine with whatever is given. So in that particular case, if the respondent also agrees for the same, there both of them can agree, and both of them have to sign a settlement agreement, and this will be done with. So first duty of the internal complaints committee becomes to send the complaints copy to the respondent. Second duty becomes to suggest the complainant to go for conciliation, that is, to settle the case without an actual investigation and inquiry, mutually settle the case by giving a punishment, or by the other party, that is the respondent, to complying with whatever punishment they both agree upon. There can never be financial settlements taking place in this particular manner. Always keep that in mind. Okay, that the respondent comes in, offers money to the complainant, the complainant says that, okay, I'm ready to settle. This can never become a part of an official settlement agreement with the ICC. Next is what is the next duty of the complainant, of the ICC? That if the complainant does not agree for an to go for conciliation, what happens then? Then the ICC will get 90 days to conduct investigation, that is the inquiry procedure. In those 90 days, what all they have to do? They have to collect all the documentary evidences, that are available on record to support the incident. They have to talk to both the respondent and the victim, that is the complainant, and gather witnesses, call upon the witnesses for interviews, call both of these parties for interviews, and then record every statement that is being spoken by every person who is called upon during the investigation and inquiry process. One more important thing that the ICC's duty is, and the ICC members must take care of, when each and every member that is being called upon for interview must sign a non-disclosure agreement. Okay, so that the confidentiality of the matter is maintained and the victim is not afraid of the inquiry procedure, that okay, if this happens, this will happen, and people will talk about me in the office. The witnesses will go and spread rumors about me. Okay, that this was also in point before this particular incident also took place, and the victim did nothing then, and everything of that sort. So it is very important for the ICC to take care that every person who is involved in the matter signs. In fact, even the complainant as well signs a non-disclosure agreement. Okay, so after 90 days, the inquiry is done and over with. At the end of 90 days, starting from the 91st day, the ICC gets 10 days. Okay, 10 days to file or submit their report. To submit their report to the employer. Within their report, they put in recommendations. If the complaint is upheld, they give their recommendations. Okay, the complaint was true, and we are upholding the complaint, and these are the particular punishments that we recommend. The punishments could be from promotion, withholding their promotion, increment, or terminating their services, asking them to apologize, some sort of censure, warning, reprimand, or in fact, in recent scenarios, since the year 2016-17, Supreme Court has given judgments where community service is also included as a part of punishment. That okay, the particular person can be given some sort of punishment to provide to perform community services to the community, like planting so many trees, or holding going volunteering with some NGOs to go in rural areas or undeserved places and underserved places and work perform some activity or anything of that sort. Now, after 10 days of the employer has now received the report from the ICC. Now, the employer gets 60 days to take action on the recommendations of the internal complaints committee. Okay, so this is basically the timeline: 3 months to report, 7 days to pass on the complainant to the respondent, 10 days to receive a reply from them. If settled with conciliation, well and good. If does not settle with conciliation, 90 days of inquiry plus 10 days of submitting the report and 60 days of taking the action. If they're not satisfied with the action of the employer, the aggrieved person has a right to appeal to either a labor court or a tribunal, or post that to the high court as well within 3 months. Okay, these are sexual harassment consequences. What can be done? There has to be a due investigation. Credibility of the complaint would be identified. There can very well be chances that the complaints that are filed are malicious or false. Then the ICC has the power to inform to the employer in their report that this particular complaint that was filed was malicious in nature, and therefore must be taken care of, and the complainant has to be given a punishment and not the respondent. Okay, one more thing that every person must be aware of while they are taking care, actually not every person, yeah, everyone, every employee, every employer, and the entire internal complaints committee must be aware of, is throughout this particular procedure of filing complaints, the complainant, if at any point of time feels unsatisfied or feels terrified that okay, I have filed the complaint, the inquiry procedure is being taken care of, but this particular person who is the perpetrator, the respondent, is taking actions against me, and I'm afraid to come to the office, I'm not able to do my work well, there are a few interim measures within the act that the ICC can grant to the complainant if she makes a written request to the ICC. What are those interim measures? Those interim measures are basically transfer of the respondent to some other department, or restraint the respondent from reporting on her work or filing any reviews for her. And third, they can ask for a leave for up to 3 months. Okay, they can ask for a leave. The ICC can give the leave up to 3 months with the authority of the employer itself. But this is the most taken advantage of, or taken undue advantage of, interim measure. So while providing interim measures also, the ICC has to be very careful and take into consideration the severity of the incident. Okay. Measures against sexual harassment could be, as we have already seen, formal written warnings, termination descending from current designation, counseling, community service, withholding promotion, termination, etc. Okay. What does not count as workplace sexual harassment? Making up, yeah, making to follow up on your work due to being absent. Okay. The employer, if there was a very important deadline, you have not submitted your report, or you have not submitted your final work, and the employer asks you like 2, 3, 4, 5 times, this won't be sexual harassment. You were bound to submit that work. That work. Physical contacts like touching, tapping, or brushing without any sexual intent or intimation. This particular section, this particular clause, wherein we have already sent that it becomes at the perception of the receiver. If the receiver thinks that this is not sexual in nature, it is okay, like touching, tapping, or brushing. If they think that this is okay, we are also okay. This does not mean, okay, I am at the receiving end of a tapping at my shoulder, the person sitting next to me finds out that, okay, this is sexual in nature, they go and file a complaint to the ICC. The ICC will come and ask me. If I'm okay with it, then this is not a sexual harassment at workplace. Practical feedbacks about the job, work related emergency communication, and everything. Okay. A few more things that we need to cover are safeguarding against reprisal actions. Okay, this is the thing that I talked about earlier. Suppose the complaint that was filed was malicious in nature. So, what actions can be taken? If the complaint that was filed was malicious in nature, it will have to be taken care by the ICC. The same type of recommendations they can give to the employer, and then the employer will act on those recommendations again. Okay. And then reprisal actions basically, if the victim filed a complaint against the respondent asks for, or terrorizes, or threatens the complainant that uh, in any manner, or compels them to take their complaint back, or physically or psychologically hampers them that I will do this if you do not take your complaints back. All of this also has to be taken care of within the ICC, and the victim has to file a complaint for these as well. Then relationships with mutual consent, this also you must be aware of. If there were mutually consensual relationships within the office premises, then any activity that happens between those two will not count as sexual harassment. Okay. But when at any point the mutual agreed relationship comes to an end, and the actions which were considered normal once will not be considered normal anymore or any further. Okay. Any questions? Yeah, I am done with the session. Yes, you can move ahead and take it to the question.
Thank you, Advocate Ruchira Nareka. I have taken this opportunity for extending my heartfelt vote of thanks to you, and I will take you to the question and answers session also. We have
Yes.
one question from Priyanka Sandeep.
Yes.
She has asked if the company employs people on contract, example Zomato, do they
Yes.
need to comply with this act?
Yes, they do.
Okay, so I
Okay.
think they are okay, so they need to apply this act, right?
Yes,
So,
yes. Any contractual worker has to be complied with. So, what happens in cases of Zomato and Swiggy is, within one particular district itself, they have multiple. They do not have a specific place of business, but they do have more than 10 employees, right? And all contractual workers will be maybe working for a day, 10 days, 15 days. But as soon as they cross the threshold of 10 members, 10 employees, they have
o-
to comply with all of these mandates.
okay. So I think Priyanka has got the answer. Thank you, Ruchira ma'am. It was a wonderful session. You have discussed on very important topic, which is the requirement of the day, and also you have explained how employer can follow these comply with these with the posh act in a very simple manner. As such, they can easily comply with the sections as given under the posh act. Thank you so much. And I also extend my heartfelt gratitude to WMEC committee for keeping this session, and also thank you to all the participants today out who are today who participated in this session. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Sneha.
I think we are done, so we can just, yeah.
Thank you so
Thank
much, Sneha.
thank you, Ruchira ma'am. Thank you.